So I don't believe I've introduced myself. My name is Anne-Marie McLean, and I am our Research, Learning, and Engagement Librarian here at the University of the Cumberland's Library. I come to you from time in Atlanta at Emory University Libraries, and I've been really excited to work up here at the University of the Cumberlands and continue to meet people from all over the country and the world. I saw we had someone from Volcano, Hawaii, and I learned that there's a place called Volcano, Hawaii today. So great to see you guys coming from all different programs, education, IT, business, leadership. So I hope I can help all of you get a jump start on your research as you move into the dissertation phase of your research, or if you're just a graduate student trying to get reoriented, this should be helpful for you as well. So let me go ahead and open up a new tab for us. I do apologize if you hear any kitty cats fighting in the background. I'm a librarian, so I'm obligated to have cats. All right. So typically what I would do is go to the library website and start showing you all of the cool and beautiful things that we have that you are subscribed to as students. But I want to do something a little bit different today. So a lot of folks end up trying to use the tools that I show them and getting frustrated and saying, well, gosh darn it, I'm just going to go back and use Google or something else because it's much easier than trying to deal with all these convoluted tools that I don't understand. So first I want to talk about why just going back to using Google or something else instead isn't the best option, especially as a graduate student researcher. So, for example, I'll just use Google. Google, of course, is a database, which is a collection of material that's organized. That's all a database is. It's a very large database. It draws on a lot of different materials, but it is possible to do research in Google. For example, right now I'm doing a little bit of research on cats in the Talmud. Nowadays, we have these new AI modes that sort of pop up. So things are certainly different than they were 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. But as you'll notice, results down here, we have some my Jewish, some encyclopedias, or some Reddit. So we have all different kinds of resources. So that's one, great because there's a variety, but two, as we get what we librarians love to call information overload. So there's just too much for us to take in. We could look at these results for hours and hours, or probably days and days, and never be done. And it's just too much to process, right? Like there's no way we as humans could go through all of this. So that's one of the problems with saying I'll just go to Google. It's just get through. Now, certainly there are ways to search, for example. So say, oh, I only wanted to look at images. Of course, we could go here. This is one of my favorites. It's actually a cat hunting a bird. But if we go back here, you'll see also, as I was saying, there's a mix of scholarly and popular resources. So, for example, there are plenty of scholarly commentaries on this image, but we also get things like the Reddit, which is obviously not a scholarly source, right? We couldn't cite that in our work, which I'll go into more detail in a bit. So that's another problem with our Google. Another issue, if you do find something scholarly, chances are you're not going to be able to get the full version. You're going to have to pay for it. You're going to get to something like Elsevier, and it's going to say, you can buy this for $250. And nobody has that kind of money. Information is expensive, particularly academic information. So that's a part of your tuition, actually goes to buying access to a lot of the scholarly articles, peer-reviewed studies, secondary data that you all use for your research. So that's another problem with Google, is that information is expensive and Google does not give you free access to that information. Now, the open access movement is certainly gaining traction. but that is complicated and of course is not all-encompassing yet. Now, you might say, some of the more experienced of you, what about Google Scholar? That is better. And it's good to keep in mind, especially if you're wanting to search outside of just what UC owns, right? So Google Scholar sort of limits your search to more scholarly literature, not always necessarily peer-reviewed, but there are ways to limit your search. As you'll look, I had been previously looking at Bible fauna. So like I said, you're not always getting articles. Here are some book chapters, some book reviews. So it's a good way to sort of see what's out there. You can limit your search a bit, but there are downsides to Google Scholar as well. So things like, you'll see things posted on academia.edu and you'll think, oh, fantastic, a full PDF and I don't even have to pay for it. Sometimes this is great, but sometimes this might be an unofficial PDF that's not actually the stamped, edited, up-to-date version that you'll find in the real publication. So you can kind of get in trouble that way. So it's always good to find the actual official thing. So that's where we can sort of get in trouble. ResearchGate is another example. These are kind of like academic social media networking sites. You post your work and say, hey, check this out, but it's not actually the official journal version. So that's one thing to be wary of in Google Scholar. Great way to kind of see what's out there, but not always the best way to get that information. Because like we said, it's expensive. And sometimes if it's too good to be true, it probably is. All right, so then you might say, well, Anne-Marie, I've outsmarted you. I know how to use something called ChatGPT, or maybe even that AI summary that Google showed me when I was searching. That's great. I am 100% about incorporating AI into your work, but there are stipulations for that. And we've seen not only students get caught in these traps, but even government officials. So there are things to be wary of, and there are things that it just can't do for you that the library resources can. So for one, output depends on input, right? So I'm lucky I have a master's of information science. So I understand where information comes from. Sometimes I can call out ChatGPT and say, actually, no, that comes from a book, not a journal. And it'll say, oh, you're right. So it doesn't always know, right? And it's really good at predicting language. So it's really good at creating what looks like should be a real paper, but is not. You'll especially see this when it generates a bibliography. So it will create, let's say, can you generate bibliography for studies and business and we don't want you to think longer. Another issue is you might not have a subscription to something like version 5. This is something that the university pays for, so other subscriptions don't think as hard. As you can see here, it is giving me links, so it's gotten better, but especially versions that you're not paying for, it might give you, for example, an author that is published on this topic, but it makes up an article name. So it seems like, oh, it's perfect, but you can't find the article, or the journal title is wrong. Daryl, yeah, thanks. No problem at all. This will be recorded and posted, and I can give you the link that it will be posted to right now. So let's see. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go, but it's close. So if anybody needs to come back, the link is going to be posted on our dissertation research guide, which I'm going to show you all in a bit, but I'm going to put it here in the chat. So you can always come back to that and see the video. Okie dokie. I'm going to hop back to where we were. So as I was saying, you'll see something like a real author on the real topic, but a fake journal or a fake article title. So that's where it can really trip you up. And like I said, I've seen this not only in students, but in people working in, like the government. So it can trick it can trick anybody, and it's really convincing. So that's something to watch out about with AI. It's pretty good at creating things that you want to be real but are not. And keep in mind that it is trained on material, so we're not sure how much it's trained on, and that is always changing. And of course, you've all heard of the privacy risks and the potential bias that comes with AI. So like I said, if you're going to use AI, that's great, but learn how to use it responsibly. UC does have a policy that it is not announced yet. It will be very soon. So that might be an impulse. I'm just going to use AI to help me. Great if you're breaking down a topic, doing some exploring about, different directions in research. Not so great for literally finding research. Finally, you might be looking for the University of the Cumberland's Library and get to here. This isn't a bad place to get, and I'm proud if you got here, but I understand if you get here and you're like, what am I supposed to even be doing now? So you have like this 3 buttons and a search box, and then this weird space, and then some other things down here. I would advise not bookmarking this link, but instead bookmarking this link. So this is kind of going to be your home base for library resources. And I'm going to put that in the chat right now. This is where you can come back to, and all the resources that I talk about tonight are going to be linked here somewhere on this page. I know it must be really frustrating for students to either go to Blackboard and be linked here and be like, I don't know, am I searching in here or where? So do always remember big blue button if you can't remember anything else. And this should be the page that you get to. Gonna take a pause and take a sip of water. Let everybody bookmark that if they would like. Okay. So here we have arrived at the Welcome to the Library homepage. And this is where I would suggest we go when we start our research, instead of going straight to Google or straight to AI. Let's start with the Find Resources box up here. This is going to be where we've listed places to directly start searching for materials, especially on this first tab called UC Search. So UC Search is the fun branded name for what we call the library catalog. If you don't know what a library catalog is, that's okay. It's a little dated. Essentially, what a library catalog is a collection of records of all the materials that the library either has access to or owns. So everything that's in the library, we have a record of it, and it tells you where it lives or how to get there, whether that's on the shelf or online or in a storage facility. It's a record of it. So we call that thing UC Search, and here is what it looks like. There we are. So that gets you directly to this basic search box. We're not going to go straight into it now. I just want to introduce it. This is what it looks like. It is here, and we're going to come back to it. But that's where we're going to search to see if UC owns this thing. That's where we're going to look. You'll also see 2 other options here. I'm going to skip over this one because I don't think it's quite as necessary right now. But I'm going to highlight the bottom one here called Research Assistant. This is the sort of AI add-on, I guess you could call, for the UC Search or Library Catalog. So whereas here, I'm going to teach you how to do traditional searching, which involves narrowing down to keywords and connecting them with Boolean phrases. This will let you ask questions in natural language as you would in ChatGPT or Google Gemini. Yeah, I think that's what the AI assistant is called there. So let me just show you what that looks like as opposed to the traditional catalog. Oh, and you're always going to have to sign in multiple times. Oh, and I'm going to have to do the number. This is my favorite. Let's see if it recognizes my face. We have success. So here we are. It's called the Primo Research Assistant. As you can see, it's got a big box here, and it's saying, what is your research question? And it's giving you some examples, as you can see, which are asking full questions rather than doing something like I'll teach you in a second, like, let's see, IT, oh, no, let's do, let's see, security and authentication. I knew I would get that wrong, but dear Lord, I tried. So that's going to be the difference in our catalog traditional searching and our AI assistant. Both are great, but used for different things. Like I said, I'm just giving you a quick intro into where they live on the page right now, and we're going to jump in a second. We have two other places I'll highlight for you guys over here. Our databases tab. If you don't know what a subject database or an academic database is, no worries. It's just a collection of organized material broken down by subject. And then it's usually a concentration of scholarly or peer-reviewed material. So as you can see, this one will be a collection of education, peer-reviewed or scholarly sources. Some are, for example, film, some are library science. We have medicine, newspapers, psychological tests. So something for everyone. And we'll get into how to search those in a second. But you also have what's called research guides. And those are what are going to introduce you to a topic and tell you what types of databases you might want to look for things in. So if you don't know which of these to pick, you're going to hop over here, find your subject, and open one of those up, which we will do momentarily. So that's a little find resources box here. So most of the stuff I talk about tonight, when you go back to it, it's going to be right here in the middle. I think we put that there for a reason. I'll just say a few quick things about the other boxes on this page. Below here, we have library hours. This does not necessarily mean when a librarian is on staff, because as you can see, it goes to midnight. This is when the building is open. If you're looking for a librarian on staff, typically that's going to be more like business hours, with the exception of Fridays, where we have half days and close at noon. So if you're going to need to be doing some research over the weekend, I strongly suggest getting your question in by at least Thursday, so we can get back to you by Friday noon before we close. If we are ever closed due to weather or some type of event, holiday, we're going to list that here, so expect probably not to hear from us if that is the case. Let's see, I think that's it about hours. Over here, you'll see some related links, some of which are important for you all. I'll briefly mention them and we'll go back to them as they come up. One thing to note is the Ask a Librarian link. So you'll see this form here, which opens up a little question form. It's going to ask you a few things like, are you looking for a textbook? What's your question? And then a little bit about you so we can best help you. You can submit your question and it's going to send it to all of the librarians, so one of us can decide who's available and how we can most readily assist you. You will also see a little library chat on the side here. It starts out as a chat bot, but fear not. If you say you need help and none of these work for you, just say I have a different question and it's going to route you to a librarian. Like I said, typically that will be more so business hours, Monday through Friday, with the exception of Friday, we are closing at noon. But if you have a different question and there is no librarian on chat, it will automatically turn it into one of these forms and send it to all of the librarians, and we will answer the question that way. So either way, your question is going to get to us. If you want to schedule a research consultation with myself or another librarian, this is also the way to do it. So that's just basically a way to get in touch with us. You can always, of course, email me directly if you have a question about specifically something like surveys or other dissertation topics that we cover tonight. So that's our Ask a Librarian forms, library chat, and Ask a Librarian over here. I'll also just mention briefly, we do have links for frequently asked questions and our library tutorials. These are new and they're created to be very short so that you're not stuck watching an hour-long orientation video, which you're more than welcome to do. But if you know the topic that you really needed a refresher on, these are broken down into basic and advanced searching, databases, the AI tool, interlibrary loan, surveys. So we try to get everything on there that's going to be relevant for you guys and try to make it short and sweet so that you don't have to sit through a long amount of time and you can really get what you need. If you start researching and there's something you'd like a tutorial on, please let me know. These are quick and easy to make, so I'm happy to do so for you. I'm just going to put that link in the chat quickly. And I'll also note that if we go down to this librarian orientation sessions is for undergraduates and master's students. It's not bad information, but it's going to have a lot of things that aren't necessarily relevant for you or maybe a little bit less advanced. So it won't cover things like survey instruments or like the Scopus database. So I actually have shown you where your guys is. It's on the dissertation research guide here. So there's a whole research guide just for you, and that's what we're going to look at next, but not until I mention and do a shameless plug for our social media account. You'll notice it's not called the library, it's called the Rollins Family Learning Center, and that's because it also includes our Learning Commons, which has a tutoring center and a testing center. So they also have the Graduate Writing Center. I'll just pull up their page so you guys can see how awesome and amazing they are. This is the Learning Commons. I'm going to copy that link. You're just going to have a whole collection of links for me. They have a line for undergraduates or graduates. So just for you guys here, you can also email them. And like I said, they have a Graduate Writing Center where you can get feedback on different chapters, some FAQs, and then a whole support team of very, very smart folks. So if you ever have any questions about citations, this is actually where we're going to send you the Learning Commons. So that's a fun note, and you'll see that information if you click on citation help as well. So those are just a few of the related links. And our social media, which, like I said, if you follow, you'll get information both about the library and from the Learning Commons. As you can see, we got 8 important writing tips just a few days ago, etc. Alrighty, so we've made our way around this page. Now I want to show you the research guide that's made especially for you, the dissertation research guide here. So we landed on our library page. I've navigated over 2 tabs to research guides, and now I've clicked on our dissertation. I'm going to put that in the chat for you as well here. All right, so this guide was made to collect resources that are particularly relevant for graduate students going through their dissertation research process here. As you'll notice, we've got sort of some general things on our top resources tab. Some recommended databases. I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these in detail in a moment. A link to get you straight to the surveys, testing instruments, and measurements. They're going to get real popular soon. An FAQ that we answer over and over on finding dissertations by UC students. Some writing resources, interlibrary loan, and yours truly. Here you can contact me via email or phone. You'll also see one tab over is that library dissertation orientation recording. This is from the summer, so I will be updating it. I will choose the best one from this week and upload it as soon as I can, probably by early next week, if not by Friday. And I always have upcoming dates here as I know them. So if you'd like to attend again, you're more than welcome. Right here, I have direct links to our quantitative, qualitative, and applied research guides. These are going to be particularly helpful when you're looking for things like, for example, hop over here, resources for research design, data and statistics, government and health data sets, a GPAT calculator, etc. So whichever you are doing, oh, that's not where I wanted to be. Whichever style you're doing, take a look at those. I'll also mention the little blue and green books collections. They have tons of literally little books on topics in quantitative and qualitative research. And a lot of the resources for these quantitative and qualitative research come from this database called Sage Research Methods Core. I always try to take a look at this because it's not a database where you go to do research on your topic, but it's instead literally a database that has resources about doing research. I know that's very meta. But for example, in one of its tools, it has a project planner. So if I go here and I'm trying to figure out things about research design, it gives me an introduction. It talks about methods. It gives me a video. It gives me a checklist on deciding on a method. If I'm further in my research and I'm talking about data collection, it's going to give me guidance on that. What is a systematic review? So this whole database is basically tools to help you do research. If we had clicked on the little blue or green books collections, there they are. You'll see there's just topic after topic on all kinds of things that I don't understand, like spatial regression models and understanding regression analysis. So chances are whatever you're tackling should be somewhere in here. And like I said, the green are quantitative and the blue are qualitative. So that's our Sage Research Methods Core database. Like I said, it's not somewhere you go to do research about education and something. It's a database to go to learn how to do research itself. So I encourage you to use that. Let me pop out of here. All right, one more tab over, and we get to our survey instruments. How many of you have already know of the task of getting a survey instrument, or have started looking, or are already discouraged about having to find a measurement somewhat? Yeah, this is quite the doozy. It took me quite a bit to really dig into this and figure out, how to find what, and because it's, not all records are the same, and it's, even for a librarian, it's not easy, and every question I answer is a little bit different. So don't get discouraged. We have this nice little surveys tab on the dissertation research guide. I'm going to put it in our chat. So at some point, essentially, you're going to have to, if you're at least doing a quantitative search, you're going to have to find a tool to collect data. And it can be called a questionnaire, a survey, an instrument, a measure, all kinds of different words that essentially mean some type of tool to collect data. We do have a tutorial, a video tutorial, and that's going to cover basically what I'm talking about now, but it's short version, so you can go back and look for it. But we have several places that you can look for these tests. And they're all listed in the databases box here. So the most popular place is called APA Site Test. Unless you are in IT or maybe business or health get to know this and love it. Here we are, APA Psych tests. Make sure you're not in, this is very tricky because we also have APA Psych articles, books, and info. So make sure you're in the right one or else you will not get the same results. So we are in, yes, APA Psych tests. You'll notice it looks very similar to a lot of our other databases because they're all run by this company called EBSCO. So hopefully you'll get used to the format. I think it's quite user-friendly after they updated it recently. But this is a place that you can search for tests and measures. I'm going to go ahead and do a demo in here because a lot of you will be using this, and then we're going to move down our other list of databases. So for example, I am looking for something that measures, let's see, I think I got a question earlier on cannabis use disorder. It was something like that. So we're just going to go ahead and search cannabis use disorder. So we're getting results down here. As you can see, it highlights the words that we were searching for. Most of them are appearing in the title. It's giving us a little bit of information about each. And you'll also notice that it's giving us Access Now PDF. Ooh, we're getting a lot of those. We love Access Now PDF. We're also getting some that say check for full text. So this is important, and this will be relevant in most all databases. Access Now PDF or just PDF or see PDF, download PDF means that we have the thing, or at least part of the thing. And you don't have to do something like interlibrary loan, which I'll talk about later. So if you want to always only see Access Now PDF, you can limit to full text. However, that is going to maybe eliminate some things that might be relevant that you still want to look at. It does not mean if it says check for full text that it's impossible to get. It's just harder. So we're going to look at two examples, one where we can access it and one where we can't. Let's click on this record. It says Cannabis Use Disorder Identification Test Revised. At the top, you will see a couple of different options. We have Access Now PDF and download. This just means look at it online or download it to your computer. Let's just take a peek. And here is our test PDF. You'll usually see an intro screen like this. Take a look at the permissions. This is telling us that it can be reproduced and used for non-commercial research and educational purposes without seeking written permission. We love when it says that because that means you guys, basically, research and educational purposes. So we like that, and then we scroll down here. Okay, we're getting some question items. Oh, and that's it. So basically what you see is what you get here. Let's go back to the record. That was the PDF. This is what I'll call the detailed record. Just gives you the detailed information. So we're going to take a look at this. This is what you should do every time you look at a test record. It's super fun, I know. The first thing I'm going to look at, which we already kind of took a peek at, is the permissions. It says we may use for research/teaching. If it says something like no, obviously we're not going to look at this test anymore. If we can't use it, we can't use it. It might say contact author. So if we're going to have to do that, we would scroll up to the author field, or sometimes there will be a correspondence field. Let's see, is there a correspondence field in this one? We're going to find out. And it will give you something like an email address. And in that case, you would write the author and say, hi, I'd like to use this test for such and such. Would you be willing to give me permission and provide me a copy, etc.? In this case, if we weren't happy with the PDF we got and we wanted some administration materials, for example, we might email Simon. Yes, Simon, and ask if there are any other additional materials that they could provide, for example. So we just saw permissions, yay. Fee, no, that's always good. If it says fee, yes, you probably don't want to use it. Test items available, that's an important one. It says yes, and we can see it does have a PDF, so that's why it says yes. If it says no, it's going to be harder, right? It does talk about reliability and validity, which you guys will have to discuss at some point. Their little details. The last thing I'll mention is source citation. So if you want to learn about the test development or test review, it will give you some articles listed here. So as you can see, we've got 2 articles. We've got the authors, the dates, the article titles, and then the journals that they come from with the volumes, page numbers, etc. Usually, in the best case scenario, we would have access to this article, and we would go back to our good friend UC Search, which is a record of everything UC has access to. I would copy this article title. Oh, of course, the one example I have doesn't work. Let's try the second one and see. Let's see if we can do some redemption here. All right, here we go. Oh, no, that's not the one I'm looking for. We'll find it eventually. Let's try that one. Ah, not another one again. Okay, so this is fine because it leads us into interlibrary loan. So if we had the article, it would pop up, we click on it, and we go to it and read about the test development. In this case, we don't have either of these articles, but say we would really like to read about this test development, or we have to. There is a way to get articles that UC does not have access to. It is called interlibrary loan. If you are not familiar with ILL, you should be. It's a fantastic service in which different libraries and institutions from across the globe, sometimes, usually more regionally or around the country, lend other libraries either PDF copies of articles, sometimes entire books, PDFs of book chapters, so that everyone can do their research without having to pay exorbitant amount of money. So, for example, we don't have access to this article. We've checked in the catalog, it's not there. So this would be a case that qualifies for interlibrary loan. I put the URL down here in the chat. I'm going to click on the page here. And looky there, we've gotten to our interlibrary loan page. We have an article request form, a book chapter / essay request form, and a book request form. If you can, do an article request, and we do have an article, so that works out, or a book chapter, because those take about 2 to 5 business days, where a whole book is going to come in snail mail, and it's going to take a couple of weeks. So we would open up, in this case, the article form. We would fill out the information, fill out as much of this as you can. So that's the information we would get from the citation here. I know citations can be a little bit overwhelming, but go piece by piece. And if you're not familiar, like I said, we have this nice little citation help button here that will give you resources and a link to the Learning Commons to help you out. And oh Lord, too many tabs. And then you'll submit and you'll wait 2 to 5 business days and you should get a copy of that article. So that was a good little ILL segue. But we are back in APA site test looking for that measurement that we would like to use. So that is looking for instruments in APA site tests. I do have a document that walks you through that process because I know it's not easy. It's called I Found a Test in APA Site Test. Now what? So this is the article I would recommend. This is the document I would recommend you follow. It walks you through, okay, look at this field, look at this field. If this, then that, basically. If you get to a really tricky record that you don't understand, click this, it'll bring you to our question form and you can ask me and we'll look at it together. So that was one where we could access the PDF. No, that's not what I meant. Let's go back to one we saw where it said check for full text. I'm going to click here. This is an interview. No PDF up here. We're going to scroll down a little bit and see. We do have some correspondence information. We'll keep that in mind. Let's see. We've got permissions to use for research or teaching. That's great. No fee. That's great. Test items available? No. Well, that makes sense. There was no PDF at the top. We're not seeing reliability or validity indicated. That's not great, but it is an interview, so maybe that's why. We are seeing an article about the test. Let's try one more time and see if we have access to this guy. Man, it's really not going to work for me. Guys, I swear this works like 1 out of 3 times, but it's just not going to work tonight. So we don't have this article. We're not going to do it in our library alone right now. So this isn't looking great. Let's see, what did it say about permissions? May use for research or teaching. So in this case, if it says we can use it, but the test items aren't available, your next best bet would be to contact the publisher or the author. I'm seeing some author information and correspondence information. I'm not seeing any publisher information. Nope. So your next step would be to contact the author. Like I said, if this is like absolutely the thing you need to use, you can absolutely take that step. So it's not the end of the road, but it is going to be more difficult than using one that already has the PDF out there. So the wonderful world of APA site tests. Remember, I'm here to help if you need it. Let's close some of these tabs. It's just out of control. Okay, so here we are. We're back on our dissertation/surveys page. We've just looked at APA site tests, and I told you about this document that should help you go through and interpret those very complex records. I want to look at a few of these other databases, but I'm not going to open it up and do what we just did because we would be here for like 30 more hours. But we have, for you health folks out there, the HAPPY database. I'm not sure if it's hoppy or happy, but I'd like to say happy. So this is health and psychosocial instruments, and it provides information about a lot of measurement tools in those disciplines, but it doesn't always provide the actual tools themselves. So this is maybe a good place to search around and see what's out there, but you're probably going to have to do some additional work in actually getting a copy or getting permission to use those instruments. So that's sort of a subject-specific database. Our mental measurements yearbook and tests in print. So this is a guide to 2000 contemporary testing instruments. These are primarily commercially available tests, and what commercially available usually means is you have to pay for it. So certainly there are some people who have paid like to use like the MLQ multi-something questionnaire, multi-leadership questionnaire, multi-factor leadership questionnaire. There it is. There are student discounts for some things. So you can look around in here, but know that that might involve paying to use something. And I certainly wouldn't want you to have to do that for research, unless you have a stipend or something. All right, moving right along. Scopus, this is something new that we really encourage you to use. This is a citation and abstract database of peer-reviewed literature. So it sort of like creates a map of citations. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in a moment. But if you're using it in the context of trying to find instruments, you'll want to include words like questionnaire, survey, scale, and limit your results to articles. And you might find articles that include things about tools. So this is sort of if you're getting no hits in here, you're wanting to increase your range. This is primarily sciences scopuses. Like I got no hits with my cats in the Bible research, but it's a great one, and it's great for like a citation mapping. So if you're looking at doing like a systematic literature review or something, this is a really cool thing. Moving right along, you're probably really interested in the ProQuest dissertations and theses database because you can find some examples of University of the Cumberland's dissertations in here. It's not a complete collection because we don't require folks to upload their dissertations or theses into this database, although people can if they take it into their own hands. Is that what I'm looking for? If they take the initiative to do so. So the way you would use this is you would go and look at dissertations that are very similar to your own topic and see what instruments they used. The trick is that you have to find an instrument that actually has a name and that has been validated and that exists in something like one of these databases. A lot of times, depending on the institution, the students might create their own tool, which requires doing all kinds of other things like a field study. So if the tool hasn't been published on basically right now, it's not going to be something you can use. But people have found things in here. You just have to kind of dig. You have to open up. I'll just go ahead and open this up for you so you can see. Let's do an advanced search so you can see what it would look like to do. As you can see, many options here, but I'm going down to the university institution because I want to see if we can find something from the Cumberlands. Let's try this. Oh, there we are. So as you can see, 229, obviously not a comprehensive collection. And we're going to look up, we'll leave it at that and see what we get. Oh, we've got a few. So we have some examples here. So if you were looking to see what tool did these folks use in their research? Okay, why are you not opening? We're going to do this one. You would probably most likely want to go to their chapter 3. Where is their? There it is. There it is. And you'll read about their process and procedure and methodology. And look, there's even a page number for survey instruments. So that's sort of a indirect way of finding a survey instrument. The ProQuest dissertations and theses. Also, if you just want to see what a dissertation looks like, that's another place you can go. All right, 2 more to go. We've got this. So UIT students, if you are not measuring user perceptions, behaviors, or attitudes, and if you're doing a highly technical topic, try looking for survey instruments used in studies in the IEEE database. So I think I did see a few IT people out there, so that is for you. And you would do the same type of thing where you would open up an article, go to the methodology section, see what they used. And the same thing with the ACM Digital Library. Oh my goodness. So those are all ways you can look for surveys. And I tried to put a description of how you would use it specifically for surveys because these also appear in our whole list of databases, right? And you can use them for other things. Okay, it says my connection is poor right now, so if I do drop out, somebody let me know. Okay, what else on here? Oh, the MLQ. Look, it was right there the whole time, and I was trying to think of it. This is just a FAQ we get. It gives you the link to request a student discount if you end up wanting to use this. And just a little note, if you want to get a survey, and it's that link that, oh, now we're not there, but it's that link that said check for full text and you can't get it. Sometimes it'll bring you directly to an ILL page. Keep in mind that you can't ILL an actual survey instrument if we don't have the PDF, because if the author or the publisher hasn't put it out there, nobody has it. It's not like we don't have the article and we can borrow it from somebody else. Like nobody has the survey that we can borrow it from. It is the author or the publisher that has it. So you can submit the article from the source citation in the record, but not for the actual survey itself. In fact, if you go to the ILL page, it'll say, is this for a survey? If you say yes, it's going to be like, please don't do that, or something more polite. Okay, that's our surveys page. That's a big part of your dissertation research, and I know it can be a headache. So are there any preliminary questions about that? Is anybody still awake? Okay. The questions will probably come, so feel free to get in touch with me. I know it's not simple. Alrighty. I will mention that I did concentrate some tutorials that I thought were most relevant for you guys on this page, including some more advanced stuff and some stage database stuff. So there we are. Let's go back. That was our home page. That's your guide. Let's get out of here. There and there. Okay. All right, so that was your dissertation research guide. Do keep in mind that there are more guides in addition to that one. So if you are in the education program, you can use their education guide. If you are doing something on religion, you can take a look at the missions and ministry. So those are basically introductions into doing research on that subject. Particularly helpful if you can't remember what databases are recommended. This should give you a list of all the ones that will be relevant in that subject. You can also, like I said, see a full list of all the databases here. I also like to have, this is my more favorite view of the databases, right here. Let's see. Oh, Becky, I will absolutely cover finding existing data sets. We will get to that actually next. So this is just my more favorite view of the databases because it describes each one in more detail. So if you want to bookmark that, sometimes it's helpful to go through and actually see what's in these things. All right, somebody just said something about finding existing data sets. Excellent question. So for that in particular, I would want to run to our quantitative research guide and go to our secondary data page. I'm going to put this in the chat. So couple of different places to take a look at. One is an actual database itself called Statistical Abstract. And it's signing us in. This comes from ProQuest. So as you can see, different editions that you can select going back to 2013. We have a search box, and we have sort of a section guide on all of the different subjects, basically areas that we have data in. So typically, no matter where you go or what you click on, it should give you a lovely durable URL, so you can always come back to it. But what I was going to say is the citation, because I know a lot of times that would be what would trip me up, like how do I even cite that? It should give you a citation at the bottom. So that's a place to look through data. It's a lot to comb through, but it is there, and that's called Statista. Oh, sorry, Statistical Abstract, not Statista. Woo! Statista is a different one. Thinking. Okay, so just Statista is a different statistical database. And I see a question in the chat that says, what's the best approach to find materials up to date and of high quality? So I'd say there's two parts of that question. You can always limit your date range when you're looking for materials by, for example, if you wanted to limit to just 2024, 2025, you can do that here. You can, of course, do that in the library catalog or in your databases. So that's something you can manually control when you do searches. And then in terms of quality, that's sort of what I was discussing at the beginning. Instead of using things like Google and AI, your quality is going to come from using the resources that I'm showing you now today. So, for example, we know that these databases provide resources that are of high quality, usually peer-reviewed. The data and statistics that we're suggesting here are coming from projects and databases that are typically reputable resources. So this is sort of a safe place to concentrate and search for resources that are safe to use in your research, if that makes sense. They're high quality and they allow you to narrow your date to recent research. So let's go back here to Statista. Of course, that was a great question. And similar, so for example, oh, Netflix, let's see what that's about. So we're getting sort of a subject. We could choose a region. Let's see here. Show more, video streaming, overview, employees. Gosh, there's just so much here. Biggest Netflix libraries in the world, and that's February 2025, so we know that's current. Looks like we can download a PDF. So you will notice that some of these reports, you'll go to, let's see what happens when we go to download. You might have to create like a Statista account, and that's to do things like save things to your folder. You'll see it in other databases like JSTOR, like you need to create a JSTOR account or an academic writer account. If it ever asks you for money, don't do it. There should be a way to do it for free. Contact one of us librarians and we'll verify for you. Don't ever give anything money, especially if it's coming off of here. We should be able to find a way to get the thing without you having to give any money, hopefully. So keep that in mind. It looks like they also have a research AI tab. Most databases are getting one version or another, so those are fun to try out. Take advantage of those tools as they come. Let's go back to our data and statistics. So there are specialized government and health data set guides. And then there's sort of just a blurb about secondary data and open access and open board data sets here. Do read through that and take a look at the data sets over here. So these are more open sourced data sets. And like I said, we've split it up into like government, which is then, let's see, we do have a government resources one somewhere that splits it up into even more. So that would be where I would start if I was going into some secondary data. So excellent question. Folks ask it a lot. It also depends on your area of study, right? So like I was a humanities person in religion, so I often use the ARDA, which is the Association of Religion Data. And it gives all kinds of cool things like maps and surveys and stuff like that. So get familiar with your field. That's also what the research guides are for, to introduce you to the big resources in your types of studies. Okay. Oh my goodness, it is 9 p.m. All right, so technically I have a little bit more. If you can't hang around, that's fine. This will be recorded, but I have a few more things to introduce you guys to. So if you have to go, no worries, and nice to meet you. If you can stick around, I have a few more things to show you. So we've gotten through data, we've gotten through surveys, we've looked at Netflix stuff. It was super fun. Now I want to look at searching in general. Remember, you can always go back and look at our library tutorials, and I've broken it down into basic searching, advanced searching, searching with databases, and our research assistant tutorial. So these are always here to go back to what I'm covering now and I might even be talking slower in these. Let's see, if a data set is government and readily available for public use, can we use it? I would say always check with your chair or advisor about that type of thing, because I'm a librarian. I can show you the resource and I can look at sort of copyright limitations, but I can never make a decision about sort of if it fits your research, or like, can I use this and will it pass through IRB, that type of thing. So I can certainly, if you have a specific example, take a look at, permissions and stuff like that, but definitely loop your chair in on that conversation. Okay, let's pop back over here. Let's look at some searching very quickly. I'm going to start with the traditional searching, which can be frustrating, and then we're going to go to the fun research assistant, which is more fun. I just said fun twice. I'm so sorry. Very repetitive. All right. So as I mentioned before, we're in the UC catalog. Oh, you're most welcome about the government data sets. We are here at the UC search, which is a catalog of everything that UC has access to or owns, including books, articles, journals, video or film, sometimes archival materials. We can do a basic search in this one box. I'll give you an example. So say we are looking at homebound education. Oh, looky here. So let me show you around the page. This is what we've searched. We haven't limited it to any type of thing yet. We haven't done any limiters over here. So we've got a little over 1,000 results. It shows us a picture of the cover if there is one. It tells us what type of thing this is. So here we have a reference entry. As you might already know, reference entries are fantastic for introducing you to a topic. They also might give you a bibliography to look at. You're typically not going to be able to cite a reference entry, but you might be able to cite references in that reference entry. Wow. Oh, that was fun. Let's see. So let me just take a look at this and see if I can give you an example. Oh, wow. Fun, 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 fun. Dear Lord. I'm wondering if they have a... Here we are. So we're looking at an entry right now. Viewpoints. So usually if you're looking at an entry and you go all the way to the end of that entry, they'll have a bibliography. And that's where you can start citing things. So they made this reference entry to introduce you to a topic. And here they're giving you what they've been using to create the entry. So basically, someone has done the research for you. I call that capitalizing on a resource. So here we've got some citations. We could copy one of these. This is probably going to be very sad again, but we're going to keep our hopes up and see if we own the thing. Oh, look, well, we have chapter 1 of it. So let's go back here and see if we want to use that in our research. Like I said, a great way, there's even suggested reading. So reference works are a great way to get introductions to a topic. We have some books. Books can be used, monographs in research, especially if they're seminal works. Seminal works, if you don't already know what that is sort of like a work that's well known in the field. Maybe it's like a basis for works that came after it. So if you're doing something like Freud, or if it's an article that everybody else is always citing back to. Books can be used. I'm not sure if this one could be, but you can always click on this book and then look at its bibliography and see who it's citing. I'm seeing a quick question. Can conference proceedings be used as a source for research purposes? Excellent question, and it might vary by advisor, by department. So I would clarify that with your chair, but I will say that if you're looking at conference proceedings and they are providing a bibliography, So like I've been to conferences where I'll give a presentation and then I'll provide like a paper version, and in that version I'll provide a bibliography. So if you find a resource in that, certainly that could be something that you could cite. But otherwise you might be you might be able to cite the whole conference proceeding itself. That would be something I would double check with your chair. That's sort of my mantra, is always double check with your chair, because I don't want to get blamed for anything. So, but great question, great question. Always try to get back to the original source is what I say, like as far as you can get, even if it's German, try to get to that original source. You'll see some other things here, dissertations. I believe it's pretty standard that you cannot cite dissertations, but certainly go into that dissertation's bibliography and see who they are citing. I'm not seeing many articles. Let's see what we can do about that. So over here, we've got quite a few options to limit our search. We can, first of all, let's limit to available online, because we don't want to come into the library, despite how awesome I am. Let's also limit to peer-reviewed journals. And we've also talked about wanting to keep things current. So let's try within the last 3 years, which would be around there. Math, not great subject. And apply those filters. All right. Wow, we got rid of like 700 things. And there's still a book. I wonder if this is perhaps a collection of scholarly articles. That might be why. So article, as you can see, let's just take a look at what one looks like. When we click on it, all right, here's the thing. It's an article. There's the title. Notice these lovely icons. You'll find them in a lot of databases. The two I like most are permalink. If you want to get back to the same place, always use a permalink or a stable URL. Usually has this little paperclip. Otherwise, if you try to copy this guy and get back to it, probably not going to work. That thing will do this thing called link rot. It's really bizarre and terrible. And you might not be able to get back to that thing that you tried to record with this link months ago. If you're sending it to me and saying, can you take a look at this, send me this link. Also, it can generate a citation in whatever style you'd like. As with all citation generators, make sure you double check it, because it is a robot and you are a human, and both can make mistakes. All right, to get to the actual thing, wherever it says view online full text, click. It might give you one option, it might give you 3, it doesn't matter which. All right, here we are, and this one is run by EBSCO, which I mentioned, that nice user-friendly little view. It's taken us directly to the publication. Oh, it's got pictures. So, this looks like a little bit more almost like a magazine rather than scholarly literature. And I say that because typically in scholarly reports for research studies, you're not going to see, especially like colorful pictures. You would see more like figures and like sort of these big quotes. So that sort of strikes me as maybe not so scholarly, although it is giving some citations. So remember to sort of use your judgment. I wonder, it's giving us different content across here. Interesting. So it's almost giving us like a whole magazine. So always worth it to click into these things, and sometimes not exactly what you might think. I'm going to try another example. See if we can get something a little bit more in our wheelhouse. Here we are. So this is, okay, I see this and I'm like, definitely a scholarly journal, because you got the title, you got some graphics, but like no pictures. We've got some PhDs, we've got methods, objectives, findings, conclusions. That's how we know we're looking at a scholarly or peer-reviewed work, or some evidence-based research, something like that. Let's look at this article as a PDF. And we can scroll through here, we can download it, we can print it. My favorite thing would be to scroll to the end and look at their references and see if there's anything here that can help me. So that is finding items through the library catalog and traditional searching. Keep in mind that you can narrow as much as you would like. We can narrow even further there. I want to show you now. The last thing I wanted to say about this interface is that you'll see your filters over here and you can get rid of them, sort of like your search formula. And there is a way to do what we call Boolean searching. And that you're going to find that in your advanced search. That's a lot easier to visualize. So as you can see, there are different lines, and that's how you can combine search terms. You can also do this with parentheses. So something, let's see, if I was in the basic search, I could do something like feline and Talmud. So that's going to tell it, just like math, evaluate what's inside of here and then add it to this. So it can be this or this, but it has to be combined with this. Oh, good, we get one. I'm actually really surprised. So that is called Boolean searching, but advanced searches sort of break it down if you're a more visual person. So I could have done Talmud and cat or feline. So typically I would spend more time on this type of searching and using these and not, but because we have a new AI tool that helps a little bit to give more options, I'm not going to spend a ton of time, and I'm going to direct you instead to this advanced searching tutorial that hashes it out a little bit more, because I am respectful of your time and I don't think that would be the best use. I will mention a few things that folks have described as like library, what do they call them, like codes or tricks. They're basically symbols that do things to your words to make your search better. So for example, if I added a little asterisk on the end of cat, that would tell the system to include cat, but also anything that adds on a letter after that. So it could include cat and cats. I could, let's see, if I had a phrase that I really wanted to stay together. So for example, see, I can never think of these when I'm on the spot. So like, let's do environmental activism. This has nothing to do with this other topic, but go with it. So if I search just with this, the system's going to look for anything with environmental or activism in any order in any part of the title or body or abstract. But if I put little quotation marks around here, it's going to keep these two words together in this exact order and search for them that way. This also works for if you know a title, so that's called a known item search. So for example, we could look for to kill a mockingbird. And instead of looking for anything that had mockingbird or kill or a or two, it's going to look for just to kill a mockingbird in that order with no variance. So that's helpful in our traditional searching. There are a couple other ones that are not as often used, but are there. There's something called wildcard. So if you don't know or want to give options for a letter, for example, in the middle of a word. So for example, oh look, if I'm looking for woman or women, plural, I could do this, and I could put, some systems, it's a question mark. Sometimes it's a, not a hashtag, pound. And put the N, and that would tell the system to look for either woman or woman, because often as researchers, the way we describe something might not be the exact way somebody else is describing something, especially when it comes to little variants like that. So that's another little trick. Are there any others that I'm trying to think of? Nothing that comes to mind that's really going to change your research that much. Like I said, watch that video on advanced searching if you really want to get into it. You'll also have to use advanced searching for your subject databases if you want to get really into those, unless they have an AI plugin, which something like Scopus, which is that bibliographic database, would do. I'm going to briefly do a shout out to Scopus, then we're going to get to the AI assistant, and then we're going to be done. Just going to mention we just got this guy, and what it does is sort of makes a map or a listing of resources or authors or organizations based on what you're searching. So, for example, if you wanted to look for everything that a particular author has published, so for example, I'm looking for anything by, I don't know, Yankee. Oh, look, they do exist. So it's going to list all the authors that might match that, what affiliation they have, and then you can view their most recent titles published. It will give authors like a score, a citation overview, all kinds of fun stuff. You can do the same thing. Let's get out of here. For documents, so say we're looking for something on no, there it was. Polyvagal theory. Let's do a search. All right, it's giving you a little graph of when things have been published. Obviously, this is a newer topic, so it's going to go up. Let's see, you can view these different reviews, related documents, affiliations, etc. And keep in mind, this isn't going to give you the full articles. It's giving you more like a list of their abstracts and citation information so you can find them. Little graphs, graphs by author, source, country, subject area, all kinds of fun stuff. It also does have its own AI tool, but you can't do something like give me all the articles from 2010 on about this. It's more like examples like what impact do these have? How does chronic sleep deprivation? So let's just click on that. And it does a few cool things like, well, first it tells you what it's doing as it does it, and then it generates a summary, and it starts giving you references, and even things like a concept map, emerging themes. I'm a big visual learner, so I love stuff like this. So that can even help you plan your research and see what's out there before you start. So that's our Scopus AI. Like I said, it's a specific database that sort of maps out what's been published by who and where. Let's go back to our catalog specific AI tools. So like I said, we have our traditional searching, and then we have our new AI tool. Like I said, a lot of databases have their own. This is the one for our catalog. It's called Research Assistant. Here it is. Happy to see you. As you can see, I think it's pretty user-friendly. You land on a question box. If you have done research, it's going to give you research history. It gives you example questions, a little bit about it and how to use it. I'm just going to show you what happens when I ask a question. It's pretty neat. So let's go ahead and say, this might be a dated question, right? But so it's going to generate an overview for the 5 most relevant resources, at least what it thinks is the 5 most relevant resources that it can find, usually within our library. So it gives you those 5 resources. It gives you an overview of those 5 resources and like a summary, so like a in something that makes sense as you read through it. And then it gives you like your little footnote. So it's like, okay, that's what you can refer to if you want to know more about that. You can see the abstract, the title. So you've got a little summary here, basically. If you happen to like that particular resource, you can click more details and request options. It brings us back to our handy dandy catalog. We get the information, we get the direct link to the full text online. Oh, and here it is. Lovely. So there's our article. There's our different sections. See, these are the types of images in scholarly resources, not links. And we've got our references at the end. That was fun. Okay, so it does the same thing for each. Sometimes it has the PDF right there. Sometimes you have to click this one to get there. You can tell it if it's doing good or bad. You can ask it to try again with the same question, copy it into a Word document. You can do related research questions. So I always encourage people to switch it up because the way you talk about a topic isn't always the way everybody else talks about it. Do these pull only peer-reviewed resources? The way the system is set up, it should only be pulling peer-reviewed resources. However, I have seen it pull things like conference proceedings. So I would say always go back and use your judgment because, like I said, this is a beta mode AI tool. AI is not perfect. So I go back and always evaluate. But in theory, they should all be scholarly sources, in theory. You can ask another question. So you could keep going on this for, a good amount of time and generate different, wait for it, different answers. Now, if you start generating the same things over and over, it might be time to switch over to the catalog and do some more research. But just thinking about each article you click on that has a bibliography, that's a great way to sort of branch out and get all those resources that you're going to need. So I'd encourage you to use this. I would encourage you to not only use this, but take advantage of it and give us feedback on it because I've been playing with it. I know a few undergrads have been playing with it that I've been suggesting, but I'd really love to hear what our graduate students have to think about it. Ooh-wee. Okay. So I feel like we've been all around the world. It's 9:24. We have 5 minutes. Are there any burning questions? I know there's not much time, so if you feel like you need more time, we can always set up time to chat, or you can send me an email, or just throw it out right now. I'm happy to help either way. You guys are most welcome. This is what I'm here for. I love showing you all the fun tools and updates. It changes every semester, so feel free to come back next semester and hear about all the new gadgets. All right, this will be recorded, or you'll get a recording very similar from another session, so feel free to come back and look at it. Otherwise, I'm going to shut us down, and I will see everyone in a bit.